In this video tutorial, we are going to be learning the basic weave on a cardboard loom. The basic weave can also be called a plain weave. Materials that we will need today are as follows: tape, a plastic fork, a popsicle stick, and of course yarn in the color that you want to make your weave. We'll start with taking our popsicle stick and wrapping our yarn around it and taping it to the popsicle stick. You can take a piece of your end of one of your yarns and tie it to one of the warp strings. This just helps secure it. It's also going to be the weave that's underneath our fringe, so we don't want it to shift or move. Now the basic weave is a pattern that is made by creating sort of a checkerboard-like pattern, and you're basically weaving both above and below, so going above the warp and then below the warp, and you continue with that pattern along the whole length of your row. As you can see, I'm using my popsicle stick to carefully go back and forth through it. Be careful as you're pulling it through though. You don't want to pull too hard. It will warp the strings themselves and then it'll start to cave in. That will not be a desired effect. So here I'm just making sure by kind of stretching it back out and carefully, equalizing it. Then you can take your plastic fork and move the weaving weft yarn down so that it's sort of closest to that bottom cardboard piece and securing it nice and neat. You're going to repeat going to the other direction, again, starting over, then under with your popsicle stick, and then pulling it carefully through. As it gets to the side, again, make sure to not pull too much. Again, that warp will then sink inwards. It will drastically change the look of your piece. I stretch it out, take the fork again, and move it down. Here's an example of how if you are doing it too tightly, it starts to sink and push inwards on both sides, almost looking like a dress coming inwards. I'm just going to continue with pulling the string back and forth a handful of times, probably 4 or 5, maybe even 6 times depending on the size of my yarn as I create my weft. Anytime we talk about weft, it's the design or the yarn that covers the warp and is the visual pattern that you see when you look at your wall hanging. When you're done, you could just cut off the string from your popsicle stick and find a spot behind the weave to tuck it under so that you don't see it. Anytime I have extra yarn, I always just hide it and weave it behind, and then I can fix it later when it's finished. All right, and that's our basic weave on a cardboard loom. I hope you liked this video. Please check out my other weaving videos to learn the different kinds of weaves you can use.